Our next video in our basic series is going to look at some ways of thinking about your online course design and also thinking toward teaching your online course, but the ways that you want to think about how that can inform your design process and your choices. I'm not going to tell you how to design your course because only you know that. And as you know from part one of this video series, that has to be dictated by your unique student learning outcomes and student and course content needs. But the foundational ideas presented in this video will help inform all of the different decisions that you need to make as you design your course. The first concept I want to talk about is cognitive load. I have a video that goes into more detail about cognitive load theory that I'll share with you. So again, this will be a high-level overview to help inform your basic course decisions. Cognitive load refers to how hard a person's working memory needs to be working in order to process information. With any sort of learning design, and especially when we're designing online courses where students are sometimes working their way through content asynchronously and independently, we always want to aim to reduce cognitive load. So, for example, we want students to use their cognitive energy toward problem solving and asking questions and exploring the concepts and the content in our courses. We don't want students using that cognitive energy toward trying to figure out how to navigate the course website or how to distinguish between what's a reading and what's an assignment or when something is due. Those are all things that we can accomplish through our very intentional course design, which can then help students not have to ask those questions or spend that time and energy trying to figure a course out. So if you just take a look here, this is an actual example of readings listed in a course, but take a look and you'll see that we have everything from assignment number 1 to something with a title, Central Limit 2, CLT explanation, formulas, and can you see how there's all sorts of different naming conventions happening here. So if I'm a student in this course and I'm trying to figure out what I need, I'm spending a lot of cognitive energy and I'm probably getting frustrated with trying to figure out what I need to do, what all of this is, and what is expected of me. And that is not what we want our students to be doing in our online and hybrid courses. Here's another example of a course in Canvas. We're just seeing the titles of the different sections of the course. But if you look, we have Unit 1, then we have the name of a course with Week 2, then we just have the name of a topic, and then we have exam resources, so sort of this would be a resource section of a course, and then on and on. And so you can see that there's no consistent naming structure here, and so for a student that can be very, very confusing. Here's just one other example where we're looking a little deeper into those modules. So there's the Unit 1 Introduction to Philosophy, but look at this first file. So the instructor here did not change the name of this image, and this doesn't mean anything to a student. Then we have, something indented, but, I would have a question, is there a relationship between these two? Why is this indented here? Why is this in all capital letters? And on and on and on. And so I think that you can see from these examples that by making some intentional design choices, like the way that we name our files and the way that we use indenting in the learning management system, it goes a long way in helping students to understand how to navigate through that space and honestly where they are in that space, so they know that they are in Week 1 or whatever it is that you need, the way that you're structuring your course. And that's all happening through your design choices. Some very basic tips when you're considering cognitive load in your course design. Think about those consistent naming conventions. Try to reduce any distracting or irrelevant media. Using images can be great, and it's a really nice way to make your course look appealing to students and to engage students, but make sure that you're using relevant images and relevant media so that students aren't even taking a moment in their thinking process to wonder, what does that image have to do with this assignment or with this discussion? Use as consistent a schedule as possible so that, again, students don't have to think about how is this week going to be different from next week. Of course, the content is going to change, but the schedule and that rhythm of the course should remain as consistent as you possibly can. And then always aim for simplicity. Final tip, make sure that your writing is very clear and is at the appropriate level for the appropriate audience. So your instructions should be very clear, and double check, triple check all of the information such as due dates. You want to make sure that that's consistent, because sometimes a small typo can be really detrimental to student learning. If, again, the student is trying to figure out how something is related to something else or when something is due. If you are writing to two different audiences, which may not be a bad idea depending on what age level you are designing for, think about signaling that. So you could have instructions that are written to parents and instructions that are written to students, but make sure that you clearly signal that. And what I mean by signaling is use bold, use italics. The example you can see on this slide is I am very clearly showing each audience what is meant for them. So make sure that you consider your audiences and signal so that your audiences know who you're writing for when. Research into student success in online courses has found that engagement, so student engagement with each other and engagement with the instructor, is really key to student success, and that often has to do with communication, clear and consistent communication. So that's the next topic I want to talk about here for you to think about even throughout the design phase before you're even teaching your online course. The visual design of your course is a form of engaging students. The screenshot you see here is just an instructor who tweeted about experimenting with her course design, and you can see that she's created sort of these images and buttons that they are really nice looking on the page, but they also have meetings. So there's Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and it says, click below and to get started. So here's an example where this is aesthetically pleasing, but it also achieves those goals we have of helping students to intuitively navigate and know where to go in our course. When it comes to online engagement and communication, you have three main modes that make up every online learning experience. And we'll go into this in more depth elsewhere, but as you're designing, consider these three modes. You have student to instructor interactions, right? So students interacting with you, with their teacher. You have student to student interactions, students interacting with each other, maybe in small groups, formally and informally. And then you have student to content interactions. So students interacting with course materials, whether those are videos or readings or manipulatives, whatever that is. And those are really the three main ways of looking at engagement and communication in an online course. Thinking through those will help you as you think through your course decisions. So, for example, when you're designing an assignment, you'll want to think about, is this assignment appropriate for students to see each other's work and to work together? And if so, I will choose a certain tool. I'd probably choose a discussion forum if I wanted students to be able to have that student-to-student interaction. Or is this an assignment that is really more appropriate for a student to submit to me directly? There really isn't any value in students seeing each other's work. If so, that's going to be a student to instructor opportunity for engagement. And if that was the case, I would probably choose a quiz or an assignment tool. So you can see the way thinking about how is the student interacting with this material or with me or with each other is going to inform your decisions about your course and the tools you'll use. And of course, know your school guidelines around student privacy. That's really crucial in the online space, and so you should check with your own school and your district when it comes to student privacy in online spaces. I want to give a quick shout out to discussion forums as a tool. This is one of the most powerful tools in Canvas, and I think can be used for almost any grade level. So discussion forums can be used for many different things. You can use a discussion forum to facilitate peer review, for example. You could use a discussion forum to have younger children simply record comments to share with each other. But especially for facilitating asynchronous student engagement and interaction, I really hope that you will explore discussion forums. I want to highlight instructor presence in online courses because, again, this is what the research tells us about how students persist with online education and how they succeed. Your presence in the online space is so important to your students feeling connected and engaged with their learning experience. It's even more important than student-to-student interaction in online spaces. Instructor presence refers to the way that in online learning environments, we combine social and cognitive presence. So if a course is purely social, we basically have Facebook, right? We have social media. That's not what we want, right? That does not lead to productive learning. If a course is purely cognitive, we have sort of a self-paced training experience, right? There is no social presence there. We don't want that either. Instructor presence is the term that we use to refer to the combination of those two. It really is you bringing yourself and your teacher presence, which of course naturally combines both social and cognitive components, into the online space. Here's a really simple example. In most platforms, you have this kind of generic user picture. That really does not convey any sense of instructor presence. But if you look over here at some of these examples where I have an actual photo of myself, you could use a memoji, an illustration, or something that's meaningful to you. And your students can do this too. And that is just a very simple way to bring you to the online space. There are many strategies for building and maintaining your instructor presence. Probably the most important is to have really clear and consistent communication so that you're sending out consistent emails to students. Those could be whole class announcements. They could also be individual check-in emails, but that those are happening on a consistent basis. It's the feedback that you give to students on their assignments, your participation in discussion forums, using images and multimedia, and the way that you design your course and bring your unique perspective to that online space. It's the tone that you use when you're writing instructions and communicating. And then also, incorporating current events or sort of showing students that you, just like them, are an active participant in the world, in society, and bringing that into the online classroom is a great way to build your presence in that space. This wraps up part 2 of our online and hybrid course design basics video series. In the third and final part in the series, we're going to talk about universal design for learning and accessibility, which are also very key, very fundamental to all of your online and hybrid course design decisions.